Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what you are really worth? Not in money, not in status, but in self-respect. Because the truth is, the words people speak to you are not just sound. They are signals. They tell you whether someone values your soul or whether they are trying to break it down. And sometimes one phrase, one sentence is all you need to know that you should walk away. Not tomorrow, not next week, but immediately. When a woman or anyone says something that strips you of your dignity, what you do next will decide the quality of your life. Will you shrink and accept it, or will you rise and claim the respect you deserve? Think about it. Every moment you allow disrespect to stay in your life, you give away a piece of your strength. Every time you ignore that inner voice telling you, this isn't right, you are teaching yourself that you don't deserve better. And that is dangerous, because what you allow becomes your standard, and what becomes your standard shapes your entire future. You were not put here to live small, to tolerate words that crush your spirit, or to settle for less than the love and respect you give out. Walking away is not weakness. It is power. It is proof that you refuse to be controlled by someone else's opinion of you. It is proof that you understand your value. The moment you decide that your peace is worth more than their approval, that is the moment your life starts to transform. And this is why you need to stay with me until the end, because what you are about to hear is not just about relationships. It is about every choice you make, every boundary you set, and every ounce of respect you demand for yourself from this day forward. Too many people stay trapped because they fear loneliness more than they fear disrespect. But listen carefully. Loneliness is temporary. Disrespect is permanent if you let it root itself inside you. You can heal from being alone, but it takes years to heal from letting the wrong words echo in your head. So ask yourself, which pain are you willing to carry? The pain of walking away, or the pain of staying where your soul is starved? The people you surround yourself with should be fuel, not fire. They should push you forward, not drag you backward. If a woman or anyone speaks words that kill your vision, your dreams, your confidence, then those words are poison. And poison doesn't get better with time. It spreads. It drains you quietly until you forget who you were meant to be. But here is the reward for making the hard choice. When you walk away from what disrespects you, you create space for what honors you. You create silence where peace can grow. You create distance from chaos and open the door for clarity. And clarity is priceless, because when you are clear on your worth, you stop begging for scraps and start demanding respect. Stay here, stay locked in, because this message is about to show you how to build unshakable boundaries, how to stand taller than the disrespect that once made you feel small, and how to step into the life you were always meant to live. Your future depends on what you choose to walk away from today. Respect is not something you wait for others to give you. It is something you decide to demand by the way you carry yourself, by the way you respond when someone crosses a line. The words you accept from others become the mirror you start to see yourself through. If you allow someone to belittle you even once, you start to question your own power. You start to wonder if maybe they're right, if maybe you're not as strong, not as worthy, not as capable. But deep down, you know the truth. You were never created to live in anyone else's shadow. You were created to stand in your own light. Every human being has a breaking point, a moment where they realize that silence is no longer strength, that ignoring disrespect is no longer peace. That moment is a gift, because it forces you to decide what kind of life you will build. Will it be a life where you are constantly shrinking yourself to fit into places you don't belong? Or will it be a life where you expand fully into who you are, without apology, without compromise? That decision starts with one choice: to walk away the moment your soul tells you this is not love, this is control, this is not support, this is sabotage. When someone tells you with their words that you are not enough, what they are really saying is that they cannot handle your power. They cannot match your energy. They cannot rise to meet your vision. And instead of growing, they want to pull you down. But you were not built to be pulled down. You were built to rise. And every time you choose to walk away from a voice that tries to keep you small, you are telling the universe, you are telling life itself that you are ready for more. Think about the times in your life when you ignored your intuition. You felt the knot in your stomach. You heard the whisper in your mind. You knew something was wrong. But you stayed anyway, hoping it would change, hoping the words would soften, hoping the respect would finally come. And every time you paid the price, you lost energy, you lost focus, you lost pieces of yourself. That is why walking away is not betrayal, it is protection. It is you choosing not to pay the price anymore. Psychologists call this self-preservation, but on a deeper level, it is self-love, the kind of love that says, I refuse to accept a life where I am disrespected. This is the foundation of confidence. This is the seed of greatness. Because confidence is not built by praise. Confidence is built by boundaries. It is built every time you say no to what tries to harm you. It is built every time you choose silence over arguing, distance over chaos, clarity over confusion. Walking away may feel lonely at first. It may feel heavy because you are leaving behind what is familiar. But remember this, familiar does not mean good. Familiar does not mean safe. Familiar does not mean love. And if the familiar is destroying your spirit, then letting it go is the only path to freedom. This is where transformation begins. Not when life hands you better people, but when you decide you will no longer settle for the ones who drain your soul. That decision shifts your energy. It shifts your focus. It shifts what you attract. And suddenly the words that once crushed you lose all their power because you finally realize the truth. You are stronger than any voice that tries to define you. The moment you take back your power is the moment you realize you don't need validation from anyone who doesn't honor your presence. When you stop chasing approval, you stop giving people the weapon of control over your emotions. Think about how many times you've sacrificed your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. How often you've silenced your truth just to avoid conflict. That cycle doesn't make you stronger. It makes you smaller. True strength is standing firm in your worth, even when it costs you connection, even when it means walking away from someone you once thought you couldn't live without. There is a reason your spirit feels heavy when you tolerate disrespect. The human mind and body are wired to respond to alignment. When your environment matches your values, you feel energy, you feel flow, you feel alive. But when your environment contradicts your values, when the words spoken to you clash with the dignity inside you, your body reacts. Stress builds, anxiety rises, sleep suffers, your immune system weakens. Science proves this, but you don't need science to feel it. You already know in your heart when something isn't right. That tension is not weakness. That tension is your body's alarm system telling you it's time to choose yourself. Walking away is not just about leaving someone behind. It's about reclaiming your inner space. It's about cleaning out the mental clutter that comes from constant criticism, manipulation, or belittling. Because the words you hear daily eventually become the words you repeat to yourself. And if those words are toxic, they will slowly poison your confidence. But when you decide enough is enough, when you step away, you cut off the supply of negativity and you allow new life-giving thoughts to take root. That shift can change everything, your focus, your energy, your goals, even the way you look in the mirror. And here's the truth most people never admit. The longer you stay where you are not respected, the harder it becomes to leave. Because every insult, every dismissive comment, every degrading statement chips away at your belief that you deserve more. That's why the choice to walk away is urgent. It's not something to postpone. The cost of waiting is higher than the cost of leaving. Each day you stay, you lose more of yourself. Each day you stay, you invest in a future built on pain instead of purpose. But imagine what happens when you finally cut ties with that energy. Imagine the silence of peace replacing the noise of constant judgment. Imagine waking up and not feeling the weight of someone else's words pressing down on your chest. Imagine looking in the mirror and finally recognizing yourself again. Not the broken version, not the drained version, but the version who knows their value, who knows they are worthy of love, respect, and growth. That freedom is priceless. That freedom is waiting for you on the other side of courage. Do not underestimate the ripple effect of one bold choice. When you walk away from what dishonors you, you are not just saving your own spirit, you are setting a standard for your future relationships, your career, your dreams. You are telling life, I refuse to be less than I was created to be. And life responds to that energy. Opportunities come, health improves, peace deepens. Because when you protect your worth, the world begins to reflect it back to you. Freedom begins with a decision, and that decision always comes with sacrifice. You cannot cling to what disrespects you and still expect to rise into the life you deserve. Every great transformation demands that you let go of something that no longer serves you. Sometimes it is a toxic relationship. Sometimes it is a circle of friends who secretly root against you. And sometimes it is simply the comfort of staying silent when your soul is begging you to speak. But whatever it is, letting it go is not loss. It is liberation. Think about what happens when you keep carrying dead weight. Your stride slows, your shoulders ache, your vision blurs because the load is too heavy. You may not notice it at first, but little by little, it robs you of speed, energy, and clarity. That is exactly what happens when you keep people in your life who use their words to undermine you. Their doubts become your doubts. Their fear becomes your fear. Their negativity becomes the lens you see yourself through. And eventually you forget how powerful you really are. Walking away is the moment you drop the weight, and the relief you feel is not just emotional, it's physical. Your body breathes easier, your mind clears, your heart feels lighter. Psychology confirms this. People who remove toxic influences experience lower stress, higher confidence, and greater life satisfaction. But beyond research, you already know it's true. Because the times you've chosen yourself, the times you've drawn a line and refused to cross it, you felt alive again. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. And alignment is everything. When your environment matches your values, you move faster, you think sharper, you dream bigger. The energy you once wasted on defending yourself, explaining yourself, or fixing someone else's disrespect is now free to fuel your vision. That is the hidden reward of walking away. It's not just what you lose, it's what you gain. You gain time, you gain focus, you gain strength. Most importantly, you gain yourself back. It takes courage to walk away, but courage grows each time you choose it. At first, your voice may shake. Your steps may feel uncertain. Doubt will whisper, what if I'm making a mistake? But listen closely, the only mistake is staying where you are not valued. The only mistake is believing that disrespect is the best you will ever receive. Once you silence that lie, once you take the step, you begin to build an inner foundation so strong that nothing and no one can knock it down again. You are not meant to beg for respect. You are not meant to chase validation. You are not meant to live in fear of someone else's opinion. You are meant to rise into your own greatness, to stand tall in your own truth, to live free of chains disguised as love. And the moment you realize that, the moment you truly see it, something powerful happens. You no longer see walking away as losing. You see it as winning. You see it as choosing. You see it as finally aligning your life with the respect you have always deserved. That choice is waiting for you. It is not somewhere in the future. It is here. It is now. And once you take it, once you decide that your peace, your dignity, and your purpose are non-negotiable, you will never again settle for anything less. The deepest truth you must accept is that respect is not negotiable. It is the foundation of every healthy connection, and without it, nothing can stand. Love without respect becomes control. Friendship without respect becomes envy. Partnership without respect becomes manipulation. And when respect is gone, no amount of excuses, apologies, or promises can replace it. That is why you must never explain away words that cut your spirit. The moment you excuse disrespect, you invite more of it into your life. Your worth is not measured by how much you can endure. Endurance is not the same as strength. Strength is the ability to walk away from what dishonors you, even when your heart still cares, even when your mind still doubts, even when your comfort zone begs you to stay. Endurance without boundaries becomes self-destruction, and too many people confuse suffering with love. But suffering is not proof of loyalty. Suffering is proof that you've ignored your own value for too long. There is a reason your inner voice grows louder every time you tolerate what you know is wrong. That voice is your compass. It is life pulling you back into alignment, reminding you that peace is your birthright, that dignity is your standard, that you were never meant to live beneath anyone's words. Ignoring that voice might feel easier in the moment, but long-term, it's the costliest mistake you can make. Because when you silence your intuition, you silence the very part of you designed to protect your future. Walking away is not about anger, revenge, or proving someone wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about standing on the unshakable belief that you deserve respect in every room you enter, in every bond you build, in every word spoken to you. And when you hold that standard, the world begins to adjust. People who can't rise to meet it will fall away. People who can honor it will draw closer. Your energy will shift, and with it, your circle will transform. There will be moments when you second guess yourself, when you wonder if maybe you ask for too much, if maybe your standards are too high. But hear this clearly, Asking for respect is never too much. Wanting peace is never too much. Demanding love that does not come with hidden cruelty is never too much. What is too much is living a life where you constantly doubt your own worth, constantly bend to fit someone else's broken definition of love. That is not living, that is surviving. And you were not born to survive. You were born to thrive. Every time you choose yourself, you set a new pattern in your mind. Psychology calls this reinforcement. The more you practice standing tall, the more natural it becomes. At first, it may feel foreign. You may stumble. You may feel the pull of old habits. But repetition builds confidence. Repetition builds identity. Soon, walking away from disrespect will not feel like a battle. It will feel automatic because you will have trained yourself to never settle for less again. That is the transformation waiting for you. Not a moment of rage, but a lifetime of clarity. Not a temporary burst of courage, but a permanent foundation of self-respect. The kind of foundation that changes how you move, how you speak, how you love, how you build your future. And once that foundation is laid, nothing and no one can take it from you. The standard you set for yourself becomes the filter through which the world treats you. If you decide that disrespect is acceptable, life will send more of it your way. If you decide that peace is non-negotiable, then chaos cannot stay. This is not luck. It is not chance. It is psychology. People respond to the energy you project. And if you project strength, boundaries, and clarity, the ones who cannot honor that will remove themselves. This is how you protect your future, by refusing to compromise your present. Too many people wait for others to change before they take action. They wait for the words to soften, for the behavior to improve, for the promises to finally match reality. But waiting for change in someone else is the fastest way to waste your own life. You cannot control another person's respect. You can only control your response. And the most powerful response is distance. Not shouting, not begging, not arguing, distance. Silence speaks louder than confrontation. Walking away declares louder than any words that you will not tolerate what diminishes you. This choice is not easy because the human brain craves familiarity. Even when familiarity is painful, it feels safer than the unknown. That is why so many people stay where they don't belong. The discomfort of the familiar feels less frightening than the mystery of freedom. But freedom is where growth happens. Freedom is where healing begins. Freedom is where you finally discover who you are when you are not carrying the burden of someone else's disrespect. Think about the energy you lose when you live in environments that tear you down. Every insult replayed in your mind, every argument that steals your focus, every attempt to prove your worth to someone who has already decided not to see it. That is wasted energy, and energy is life. If you are constantly drained by negativity, how can you build? How can you chase dreams? How can you give your best to the people who truly deserve you? Walking away is not abandonment of others. It is preservation of yourself. Preservation leads to transformation because once you conserve that energy, once you stop bleeding your power into places that don't honor it, you begin to redirect it. You redirect it into your goals, your growth, your purpose. You find clarity because the noise is gone. You find strength because you are no longer battling against constant resistance. And slowly you remember who you are without the weight of disrespect pressing on your chest. That remembrance is the beginning of greatness. You cannot rise into your higher self while clinging to what drags you back down. The universe, life, energy, whatever name you give it, cannot deliver abundance to hands that are already full of poison. You must let go to receive. You must release to be filled. That is why walking away is not an ending, it is a beginning. It is the doorway to a life where you no longer measure your value by how much disrespect you can endure, but by how firmly you demand the respect you deserve. Every choice you make writes your future. Every boundary you set builds your foundation. And the stronger your foundation, the higher you can rise. When you decide once and for all that you will never again accept words or actions that dishonor you, you unlock the kind of freedom that cannot be taken away. That freedom is waiting, and it begins with one step, choosing yourself over anything that tries to make you forget your worth. The life you deserve is built on choices that demand courage. Courage to say no when yes feels easier. Courage to walk away when staying feels safer. Courage to believe in your worth when others try to convince you otherwise. This kind of courage is not about being fearless. It is about acting even when the fear is loud. Because fear will always try to keep you trapped in places you've outgrown. Fear whispers that you'll be alone, that you'll regret it, that you're asking for too much. But fear is not truth. Fear is the voice of limitation. Respect is the voice of freedom. Every time you stand up for yourself, your brain rewires. Psychology calls this neuroplasticity. The more you repeat an action, the more your mind strengthens that pathway. So every time you walk away from what dishonors you, you are literally reshaping your brain to believe in your own value. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you build, and you build it by honoring yourself in moments where it would have been easier to settle. Settling is the silent thief of greatness. It convinces you that a half-lived life is enough. It numbs you into believing that peace is too expensive, that respect is too rare, that love without pain is impossible. But that is a lie. And as long as you believe it, you will remain chained to mediocrity. The truth is that everything you want, peace, growth, love, success, requires that you first believe you are worthy of it. And belief is proven through action. You cannot say you deserve respect while tolerating disrespect. You cannot say you value peace while allowing chaos in your circle. Your actions reveal your standards. Walking away teaches you discipline. Discipline to honor yourself above temporary emotions. Discipline to put your long-term well-being above short-term comfort. Discipline to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This discipline becomes strength, and that strength becomes freedom. Because the more you practice it, the less tolerance you have for anything that doesn't align with your truth. Freedom is not just external, it's internal. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you no longer need permission to exist fully. It's the calm you feel when you know your energy is safe, when you know your boundaries are solid, when you know you are no longer living at the mercy of someone else's words. That inner freedom reflects in everything you do. You speak with more certainty. You walk with more authority. You dream with more audacity. Because you know your worth is not negotiable. There is power in realizing you are the gatekeeper of your life. No one enters without your permission. No one stays unless they add value. No one speaks into your soul unless their words align with love and respect. This is not arrogance, it is self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation on which every other success is built. Without it, you will sabotage your own progress. With it, you will attract opportunities, people, and experiences that mirror your standard. The decision to walk away is not just about leaving someone behind. It is about stepping into the highest version of yourself. The version who refuses to settle, the version who knows their value, the version who lives free of chains. That version of you is waiting. And the only thing standing between where you are and where you could be is the courage to walk away from what no longer deserves a place in your life. The highest version of yourself does not wait for permission to be free. It does not beg for recognition, and it does not negotiate its own worth. That version of you knows that self-respect is the most powerful currency you can ever carry, because with it, you can buy back your peace, your time, and your destiny. Without it, you trade everything for the crumbs of validation that will never fill your soul. This is why the choice to walk away is sacred. It is you declaring that your life is not for sale. Every boundary you set is a declaration of identity. It tells the world, this is who I am, and this is what I refuse to accept. And boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates that decide who has earned the right to stay. When you lack them, anyone can enter, speak, and take. But when you establish them, you protect your energy like a priceless treasure, because that's exactly what it is. Your energy is your life. And when you spend it on those who dishonor you, you are draining your future to feed someone else's weakness. There's a misconception that leaving toxic situations makes you cold, distant, or hard. The opposite is true. Walking away creates space for you to be softer, freer, more loving, because you are no longer guarding yourself from constant harm. You are no longer burning energy on survival. Instead, you are investing energy into growth, into purpose, into love that feels safe. Self-respect does not harden you, it heals you. It returns you to who you were before disrespect tried to convince you that you were less. Your standards are not chains, they are wings. They do not restrict you, they elevate you. They take you above the noise of disrespect, above the weight of negativity, above the traps of manipulation. The stronger your standards, the higher you rise. And from that higher place, you begin to see clearly what you once tolerated in the fog. You see how small you had made yourself to fit into spaces unworthy of your presence. You see how often you confused attachment with love, attention with respect, comfort with growth. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. That awareness is freedom. There is a unique strength that comes from deciding you will never again betray yourself for the sake of acceptance, because betrayal doesn't always come from others. It often begins within. It begins the moment you silence your truth to avoid conflict. It begins the moment you accept words that cut you because you fear being alone. It begins the moment you convince yourself that disrespect is better than emptiness. But emptiness is not the enemy. Sometimes emptiness is space being cleared for something greater. And if you are brave enough to embrace it, emptiness becomes the soil where your true life begins to grow. The path to transformation is not built on pleasing others, but on honoring yourself. It is built on the courage to choose discomfort over disrespect, truth over illusion, peace over chaos. And each time you choose it, you grow stronger. Each time you choose it, you step closer to the life that was waiting for you all along. A life where you no longer beg for love because you already walk in it. A life where you no longer search for work because you already know it. A life where you no longer fear walking away because you have finally learned that walking away is how you walk into freedom. Walking into freedom means stepping fully into the truth that you are the creator of your own reality. No one else holds the pen to your story. No one else gets to dictate your worth. Every time you accept words that belittle you, you hand over that pen. Every time you stay where your spirit is dishonored, you allow someone else to write chapters that were never meant to define you. But the moment you walk away, you take back authorship. You decide what happens next. You decide who you become. This decision transforms more than just relationships. It shifts the way you approach every part of life. When you refuse to tolerate disrespect in your personal life, you also stop tolerating it in your career, in your friendships, in your own inner dialogue. You stop negotiating your value in every arena. You walk differently, you speak differently, you dream differently. Because now you know, without respect, nothing stands. With it, everything grows. Self-respect is not just an attitude, it is an energy. And energy is magnetic. When you move with clarity, you attract clarity. When you carry peace, you attract peace. When you walk with dignity, you attract people and opportunities that align with that same frequency. But if you allow chaos, you invite more chaos. If you accept belittling, you attract more of it. Life mirrors your standard back to you. That is why boundaries are not just about protection. They are about creation. They create the life you live, moment by moment. There will always be voices trying to convince you that your standards are too high, that your boundaries are selfish, that your expectations are unrealistic. But remember, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always resist when you start building them. Their resistance is not a sign that you are wrong. It is proof that you are finally getting it right. Do not let their discomfort drag you back into a cage you've already outgrown. Freedom always unsettles those who are still chained. Walking away requires faith. Faith that you will be okay without what you once depended on. Faith that something better will come once you create the space for it. Faith that your worth is not tied to who stays, but to who you are when you stand alone. And this faith is not blind. It is built on truth. The truth that every time in your life you've chosen courage over comfort, you've grown. The truth that every time you've listened to your inner voice, you step closer to peace. The truth that the same power that carried you through past struggles will carry you through this one. The most powerful shift happens when you no longer see walking away as loss, but as alignment. Loss takes something from you. Alignment gives something back. It gives you clarity. It gives you energy. It gives you the space to finally hear your own voice without the distortion of disrespect. That is not loss. That is gain. That is the beginning of the life you were meant to live. And once you experience that kind of peace, you will never again allow yourself to be caged by someone else's words. You will never again hand over the pen to your story, because you will know with absolute certainty that you are worthy, that you are powerful, and that your future is too valuable to waste on anything less than respect. Respecting yourself is the ultimate act of freedom, because it means you no longer wait for others to decide how valuable you are. You step into a mindset where your worth is already settled, already unshakable, already beyond negotiation. When you reach that place, no insult can penetrate, no rejection can destroy, no opinion can define. You become untouchable, not because life becomes easier, but because your foundation becomes unbreakable. This is the power of choosing to walk away from anything that does not honor you. Every person alive is influenced by the environment they keep. The words you hear daily, the attitudes you absorb, the energy you allow around you, it all becomes part of you. If the environment is toxic, you begin to see yourself through that lens. If it is supportive, you begin to rise higher than you thought possible. This is not weakness, it is human psychology. The brain adapts to what it is exposed to most. That is why protecting your environment is not optional, it is essential. You cannot grow in poison soil, and you cannot thrive in an atmosphere that constantly tears at your dignity. Walking away is how you cleanse the soil of your life. It is how you make room for growth, how you create the conditions where confidence, peace, and vision can flourish. And once you take that step, the shift inside you becomes undeniable. The noise quiets, the fog lifts, the constant battle in your mind begins to ease. This silence is not emptiness. It is space for healing. It is space for clarity. It is space for you to finally hear your own voice louder than the echoes of disrespect. The more you listen to that voice, the stronger it becomes. It tells you the truth about who you are. It reminds you that you were never meant to be ordinary, never meant to shrink, never meant to live life chained by someone else's low opinion of you. You were meant to rise, to create, to impact, to stand tall in the fullness of who you are. And the only thing keeping you from that reality is the weight of what you refuse to release. Do not confuse attachment with loyalty. Loyalty is built on respect. Without respect, attachment is just fear disguised as love. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not finding better. But fear has no power over someone who knows their worth. The moment you believe you are worthy of more, fear loses its grip. It no longer matters who walks away from you because you are too focused on walking toward your purpose. Purpose cannot coexist with constant disrespect. The energy it takes to defend your dignity in the wrong place is the same energy you need to build your vision. When you redirect that energy back into yourself, you discover strength you didn't know you had. You realize you were never weak. You were simply giving too much power to the wrong people. Once you reclaim it, everything shifts. Walking away is a doorway to alignment, and alignment is the key to transformation. The world around you changes the moment you change what you tolerate. Suddenly, the opportunities you thought were out of reach appear within your grasp. Suddenly, the peace you thought was impossible becomes your daily reality. And suddenly, you see with clarity that every sacrifice you made to honor yourself was never lost. It was the beginning of freedom. Freedom is not found in waiting for someone else to change. It is found in deciding that you will no longer sacrifice your peace to feed their comfort. The moment you draw that line, you shift from being controlled by outside forces to being guided by your own truth. And when truth leads, life follows. You begin to attract what reflects your strength, not your weakness. You begin to experience connections that add to your energy instead of draining it. You begin to live with the clarity that makes compromise impossible. The human spirit is resilient, but even resilience has limits. Every time you allow words that belittle you to stay unchecked, you chip away at your inner strength. You tell your subconscious that it is normal to be treated as less. And over time, your brain adjusts to that standard. This is how people lose themselves, not in one dramatic moment, but in a slow erosion of worth. But the reverse is also true. Every time you walk away from what disrespects you, you build yourself back up. You rewire your brain to expect better, to demand better, to believe you are worthy of better. This is not arrogance. It is self-preservation. It is knowing that the cost of tolerating disrespect is too high. It steals your confidence. It clouds your judgment. It robs you of joy. And the tragedy is that many never realize they are paying this price until years have passed and pieces of their soul feel lost. But you don't have to wait for rock bottom to wake up. You can decide now that your worth is not negotiable, that your time is not disposable, that your peace is not optional. Walking away is the loudest declaration of self-love. It says, I refuse to live beneath my potential. It says, I refuse to let someone else's brokenness define my value. It says, I choose myself even if it means walking alone. And here's the secret. You are never truly alone when you walk in alignment. Because once you honor yourself, You begin to attract people and opportunities that align with that vibration. The loneliness you fear is only temporary, but the respect you gain lasts forever. Every boundary you build becomes a shield against the voices that once tore you apart. Those same voices lose their power when you no longer give them access. They no longer define you because you no longer allow them in. That is how transformation happens. Not through fighting, not through convincing, but through silence, distance, and unshakable self-respect. The strongest people are not those who argue the loudest. The strongest are those who know when to walk away without a word. And once you experience that strength, you will never go back. You will look at your past and realize how many times you gave away your power, how many times you begged for what should have been freely given, how many times you tried to prove your worth to people incapable of seeing. That realization is painful, but it is also liberating, because from that moment forward, you cannot unlearn your value. You cannot unknow your strength. You cannot return to change once you've tasted freedom. This is why the decision to walk away is the turning point of your life. It is the moment you stop existing as a shadow of yourself and begin living as the fullest version of who you are. And once you step into that version, there is no limit to how far you can rise. The greatest test of strength is not how much pain you can endure, but how much self-respect you are willing to defend. Too many people believe strength is about holding on no matter what, as if endurance alone proves value. But endurance without boundaries is not strength. It is neglect. It is a slow sacrifice of your own dignity at the altar of someone else's comfort. True strength is having the courage to say no, even when your heart wants to say yes. It is choosing self-worth over familiarity. It is refusing to settle for a love that costs you your peace. When someone speaks words that cut at your value, they are revealing what they truly believe about you. Do not ignore that revelation. Do not excuse it or bury it or convince yourself it doesn't matter. Words are windows into the soul. They tell you what someone thinks, what they feel, what they respect or do not respect. When those words strip you of dignity, it is not a slip of the tongue. It is a reflection of their perspective. And the more you stay, the more you silently agree with that perspective. Your silence is powerful, but silence can also betray you. When you stay quiet in the face of disrespect, you are not only telling them it's acceptable, you are telling yourself the same thing. And the subconscious mind records every compromise, every dismissal, every time you chose tolerance over truth. It remembers. It shapes your self-image. And without realizing it, you begin to see yourself through the eyes of the one who belittles you. That is how people lose confidence, how they shrink, how they forget who they are. But the opposite is just as true. The moment you walk away, you reclaim your story. You tell your subconscious that you are worthy of more, that you refuse to be defined by someone else's broken perception. That single decision begins to rewrite your identity. You no longer live as someone desperate for approval. You live as someone grounded in self-respect. This shift changes everything. It changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you think, and what you attract. And this is where transformation begins. Because the world mirrors what you believe about yourself. If you carry yourself as someone who accepts disrespect, you will continue to find it everywhere. But if you walk with a posture of someone who knows their worth, the world adjusts. People treat you differently. Opportunities open that were once hidden, and your energy, once drained by constant battles, becomes fuel for growth. The fear of walking away is always temporary, but the cost of staying is permanent. You may lose people, but you will never lose yourself. And that is the most valuable trade you will ever make. You are not here to convince anyone to see your worth. You are here to live it so fully that no one's blindness can diminish it. When you finally embrace that truth, you stop begging for love and start attracting respect. You stop waiting for validation and start building your destiny. You stop clinging to what breaks you and start walking boldly toward what builds you. That is the power of one decision, and that decision is always in your hands. There comes a point when holding on is no longer love, it is self-abandonment. When you stay in spaces that chip away at your dignity, you begin to betray yourself in ways that run deeper than you realize. You might tell yourself you are being patient, that things will change, that endurance is noble. But inside, your spirit knows the truth. It knows that every moment you stay where you are not valued, you are drifting further from the person you were meant to be. And nothing is more costly than that distance. Life is constantly asking you a question. Do you believe in your own worth, or do you need someone else to validate it for you? Every interaction, every choice, every relationship is an answer. If you accept disrespect, your answer is no. If you demand respect through action, your answer is yes. The decision is never made once, it is made daily, in the small moments when you decide what you will allow and what you will no longer tolerate. And those small decisions shape your destiny far more than the big ones. Disrespect doesn't always roar, it often whispers. It comes through dismissive comments, broken promises, subtle disregard. Each one seems small, but together they create a weight heavy enough to crush your identity. That is why it is dangerous to ignore, because what you normalize becomes what you settle for, and what you settle for becomes the standard of your life. If that standard is beneath your worth, you will live beneath your potential. But if you raise it, if you demand better, everything around you has no choice but to rise to meet it. Walking away is the reset button for your life. It clears the noise, it removes the fog, it allows you to see yourself without distortion. And when you see yourself clearly, you begin to realize how much power you've always had. You see that you were never weak. You were simply too generous with your strength in the wrong places. That realization ignites something inside you, a fire that cannot be put out. It pushes you to stop waiting for someone to recognize your value and start living like it is undeniable. You are not defined by who stayed or who left. You are defined by who you chose to become in the process. And every time you choose yourself over disrespect, you prove that you are no longer living on borrowed strength. You are drawing from a well inside you that never runs dry, a source of resilience that belongs only to those who refuse to compromise their dignity. When you step into that power, fear begins to fade. Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of starting over. They lose their grip, because nothing is more frightening than living a life where you abandon yourself, and once you refuse to live that way, every other fear seems small. That is the shift. That is the liberation. That is the moment you realize walking away was never about losing. It was always about winning yourself back. And when you win yourself back, you win everything. You win your confidence, your peace, your clarity, your purpose. You win the freedom to build, to rise, to live without apology. You win the chance to create a life that reflects your worth instead of denying it. And there is no greater victory than that. The most dangerous lie you can ever believe is that your worth depends on how someone else treats you. That belief traps you in cycles of waiting, hoping, and settling. It convinces you that love must be earned through endurance, that respect must be begged for, that acceptance comes at the cost of your peace. But the truth is the opposite. Your worth was never meant to be proven. It was meant to be lived. And the moment you realize this, the power shifts. No one holds the pen to your story but you. Disrespect is not just about words, it is about energy. It is the tone that dismisses you, the actions that ignore you, the patterns that quietly strip you of importance. These are not accidents, they are signals. And your ability to respond to those signals determines whether you rise or remain stuck. Because every time you accept energy that dishonors you, you teach your spirit to expect less. And every time you reject it, you remind yourself of the standard you were born to uphold. Your brain is always listening, always recording, always building beliefs out of what you allow. When you stay in places that diminish you, your subconscious adapts by lowering your expectations. It begins to whisper that this is normal, that this is all you deserve, that asking for more is too much. But when you walk away, you break that pattern. You send a new signal to your mind. I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of respect. I am worthy of love that builds, not breaks. That message begins to rewire your entire identity. And from that new identity, transformation begins. There is nothing more powerful than a person who refuses to compromise their dignity. That refusal creates an aura that cannot be ignored. It draws in opportunities. It attracts aligned connections. It changes how others perceive you because people treat you according to the standard you set. If your standard is high, you naturally filter out those who cannot rise to it. And though that process may feel like loss at first, it is actually protection. You are not losing. You are being refined. You are clearing the path for something greater. The challenge is that fear disguises itself as loyalty. It whispers that walking away means giving up. that leaving means failing, that choosing yourself means selfishness. But fear is a liar. Walking away is not failure. It is faith. It is the belief that there is more for you than what you are currently accepting. It is the courage to leave behind what is breaking you in order to discover what can build you. It is not selfish to honor yourself. It is survival. And the moment you step into that truth, you begin to feel a strength you never knew you had. The weight of carrying what wasn't meant for you begins to lift. The fog that clouded your vision begins to clear. For the first time, you can breathe without restriction. For the first time, you can dream without doubt. That is the reward of walking away. Not emptiness, not loneliness, but clarity. The clarity that you were never meant to beg for love, never meant to chase respect, never meant to fight for your place in someone's life. You were meant to stand tall in your worth and let the right things find you. And when they do, you will know. Because love that is real will never ask you to sacrifice your dignity. Respect that is true will never demand that you shrink. Peace that is lasting will never come at the cost of your soul. Walking away is how you make space for these truths to enter your life. It is how you close the door on the noise and open the door to freedom. It is how you finally step into the life you were always meant to live. Every person has a moment when they realize they cannot keep living beneath their own value. It is a breaking point, but it is also a rebirth. The weight of constant compromise, the sting of careless words, the exhaustion of proving yourself, it all builds until something inside you says, enough. That voice may start as a whisper, but if you listen, it becomes a roar. And that roar is not anger, it is awakening. It is the sound of your spirit demanding freedom. Freedom does not come by chance, it comes by choice. It comes when you decide that your peace is more important than your fear, that your dignity is worth more than temporary comfort, that your purpose cannot be postponed by someone else's inability to honor you. This decision is not easy because it requires courage. Courage to stand alone, courage to let go, courage to believe that what you walk toward is greater than what you walk away from. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of it. And once you act, fear loses its grip. The human mind is wired to adapt, but adaptation can be dangerous when it makes you tolerate what destroys you. You can get used to stress. You can get used to disrespect. You can even get used to pain so much that it feels normal. But just because something feels familiar does not mean it belongs in your life. Familiarity is not the same as fulfillment. What is familiar may keep you comfortable, but it will never allow you to grow. Growth requires disruption. It requires breaking the cycle, refusing the pattern, stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is where transformation lives. Walking away is disruptive, but disruption is exactly what your life needs when it has been stuck in cycles of disrespect. It shakes the ground beneath your feet so you can finally move. It tears down walls that kept you trapped. It forces you to rebuild on stronger foundations. And while rebuilding may be hard, it is the only path to a life that is unshakable. Every brick you lay is a boundary. Every wall you raise is self-respect. Every roof you build is peace. And the structure that rises from it is a life that reflects your true worth. You are not defined by what you lost when you walked away. You are defined by what you gained. You gain clarity. You gain confidence. You gain freedom from the opinions that once chained you. You gain the ability to choose who and what deserves your energy. These are not small victories. They are everything. They are the difference between living in survival and living in purpose. Purpose cannot grow in a place where you are constantly defending your worth. Purpose needs space. It needs peace. It needs energy that fuels rather than drains. And when you walk away from disrespect, you give yourself the gift of that space. You create an environment where your potential can finally breathe. And when potential breathes, it expands. It pushes you to dream bigger, to act bolder, to rise higher than you ever thought possible. That rise begins the moment you stop begging for acceptance and start standing in self-respect. It begins when you realize you were never meant to be half loved, half heard, or half seen. You were meant to be fully valued, fully respected, fully honored. And the only way to experience that is to stop settling for less. Walking away is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the first step into the life you were always destined to live.